ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. I am your host, Chris Tutela, and I have an incredible show lined up for you today. My guest on today's show is Dr. John Rusin. So Dr. John Rusin is a leading expert in pain-free performance training model. His clients include MLB All-Stars, NFL All-Pros, Olympic gold, silver, and bronze medalists, world record powerlifters, and professional athletes from 8 of the major American professional sports leagues. John and I had an incredible conversation today that you're going to get so much out of. Everything from proper warm-up to training and everything in between. You're really going to get so much out of today's show. But before we get to it, I want to tell you a little bit about the Lean SOB project. That is my 6-week online nutrition coaching program for men. So this is a program specifically for men who are looking to lose up to 25 pounds of body fat in 6 weeks. This is not another fad or gimmicky program. This is not some weird starvation diet. My goal is to coach you on your nutrition for 6 weeks to help you lose fat effectively, to get you leaner, get you stronger, and get you healthy once and for all, and not only get you there, but help you maintain those results for life and continue to progress for life as well. So if you are interested in 6 weeks of coaching with me, if you want to really learn the truth about nutrition and fat loss and how to optimize your health and your performance, then I want you to head over to leansobproject.com and fill out an application. Now, here's the deal. I could only take 10 people for the Lean SOB project. Okay, I could only take 10 people, so each one of you gets enough individualized attention. And so I cannot work with everyone who applies. So if you're serious about making a transformation, if you're really serious about taking it to the next level, then fill out an application today. If you meet the requirements, I'll reach out to you. We'll set up a phone call to discuss the details and to see if this is truly a good fit for you and if you'll be a good fit for the program. So again, if you're interested in losing up to 25 pounds of body fat these next 6 weeks, then head over to leansobproject.com right away, fill out an application, and I will be in touch. Now, here is my conversation with Dr. John Rusin. Well, John Rusin, welcome to the show, my man. Welcome to the Iron Life Podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and coming on, man. Sorry for the technical difficulties that we're going through.
Bro, it's a good thing that we create content, that we coach people, get them strong, because when it comes to technology, we're fucked.
Oh, that's for damn sure. Especially me, man. But so first off, how have you been the last couple months with COVID and all that stuff? How are things going? We have to address the elephant in the room here.
Man, the elephant in the room started for me on March 17th when my ass got sent home out of the country from Sydney, Australia on an emergency flight back to Houston, Texas. We were over there doing a PPSC course, sold out, Sydney, awesome gym, awesome facility, awesome attendees. And they called us and said, hey, you need to get out of this country because we're about to lock this fucker down. And if you get stuck inside, you're not going home anytime soon. So me and 2 of my staff, we jumped on the first flight out, and it was the most bizarre pain-free performance specialist certification of all time. Because when I got off that flight on March 17th, I gained a day, but I lost 3 businesses in the process. So literally it was wild, but I can't complain because like everyone else, we've been trying to hustle, grind it out, persevere, be agile in a changing and evolving market space. Just making some shit happen in a year that is an absolute fucking nightmare for basically everyone in the fitness industry.
Yeah, it's been a crazy time and just figuring out ways to adapt, right? And you guys are online now with the PPSC, right?
Well, after 200 courses in 42 different countries, we finally bit the bullet. We're doing a one-time only pain-free performance specialist certification course online. We're giving it live. It's going to be available on demand. People get certified the same cert as they get in person. And you know what? We one-upped everybody else because we invite everyone who comes in online this year to come in person next year, 100% free on us, because we all know that there's different elements and different advantages of online. Of course, you could do it from home, but you're missing that experiential moment, that connection, that empowerment that you get being around a group of great individuals, the best coaches in each city. And we're going to give that to everyone next year for free. So I thought it was a no-brainer. We wanted to do something epic, but to be totally honest with you, Chris, like we don't plan on doing a whole lot of education online. We just needed to do it because there's a lot of people pounding down our doors for it. And we canceled 20 courses in the last 3 to 4 weeks here just because of the current situation here in America and abroad. So trying to be agile in the market space, like you said.
Yeah, totally, man. That's really cool of you to offer that as well, man. So kudos to you. And I know, at the end, I think we're all going to be better because of this damn thing. We've had to get pretty damn creative, I think, on so many different aspects and figure out what you can do and how to pivot and how to shift and how to adjust that. I think we can't help but improve after all this.
We come a long way as an industry. I remember the first couple of weeks, people didn't do anything. They're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? The gyms are closed. My clients are at home. And then we got into like 6 to 8 weeks of everyone doing Facebook workouts. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to get online today and I'm going to do my workout and you do it with me. And then we didn't realize like, oh, not everyone has a home gym and like dumbbells up to 125. And then I think most people gave up. In a matter of 4 months post-COVID, we lost about 50% of the personal trainers in the fitness industry. We went from 225 personal trainers that were actively working here in America down to just over 100,000 in a matter of 4 months. You think about that and you lose half your workforce in an entire profession in a 4-month period. That's the real pandemic. We are now battling these health issues. We are now battling against rampant disease. And we don't have any people that actually specialize in keeping people healthy because now they're selling real estate or working at fucking McDonald's because those are the only things that are open. Right. And we are in a tough challenge point right now because we are unhealthy as we've ever been. And now we're undermanned like we've never been before. Fitness peaked and now we lost it. And now people are trying to claw their way back in. So I've seen that people are successful. The best coaches are going to be successful. But the way that we make systemic change in society's health is not by having the best coach out there. It's about having a fucking army full of people trying to do the right things and push health forward. We don't have that right now. And that's going to be the challenge in the next decade with us because a lot of people lost their livelihoods just calling it what it is.
Hell yeah. And I think, I am optimistic in that it will come back and it's just going to be an uphill battle right now, especially like we're right in the middle of this damn thing and it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think the industry will be back and, we could only hope that it's sooner rather than later, but only time will tell, I guess. And we just got to keep putting the word out there and just trying to spread health, fitness, strength as much as we can. If we have a voice, if we have a platform, we have to use it and try to take full advantage.
Yeah, I've always been a big believer. It's like control the controllable, control the controllable. That's something I've said to my team for the last 7 or 8 years. And all of a sudden COVID hit and I was like, man, there's a lot of shit that is out of our control. And I sat around trying to think about me giving that advice to my team. And then all of a sudden, like 3 or 4 months ago, I'm like, fuck the uncontrollable. Take control of the uncontrollable because that's where we're at right now. A couple months in, you're like, okay, I can get by. Fuck getting by. How do you survive now to thrive later? That's what the best in the industry are doing today. And you don't have to give up on your dreams. Brick and mortar will be back. Personal training in person will be back because those things you cannot reproduce in terms of an experiential moment, client to coach. But you got to get through somehow. And I think that the more holistic approach to health and wellness, not just meathead strength training, but managing sleep, managing stress, looking at nutrition, looking at supplementation, and of course, looking at a more holistic approach to what somebody should physically be doing on a week by week, month by month, or year by year basis. That's where I see the biggest opportunity now. It's almost client management as opposed to personal training. How do you manage somebody's lifestyle? Because a lot of those management tools can be done remotely. Personal training is best delivered in person. That's coming from somebody who has a monstrous online training business. But knowing very well that all those ancillary things, the supplemental things that make you from a good to great coach, those are things that can be done outside of the gym. So plugging those holes, especially now when those holes are gaping for many of your clientele, that is how you get ahead now. And I think that the industry learned a thing or two about that. It's not good enough to just show up 3 days a week, an hour a session, and pound somebody into the ground and say, oh, see you next week after a Friday session before next Monday. We need to be managing people on a day-to-day basis. One, if we want to create that client coach experience. Two, if we want to get the best results. And three, if we want to change some fucking lives in the process, because you and I both know it's not only about the results. It's not only about the sweat dollar. It's about the connection, because we're in the service-based profession. If you don't love what you're doing, and if it doesn't drive you forward to make people's lives better, then get the fuck out. You're probably out already at this point.
Yeah, totally. I think that the one thing, as far as the trainers who are no longer in the industry, a lot of them, not going to say all of them, but I think a lot of them, I think COVID exposed a lot of the frauds out there. You know, there are a lot of frauds in this industry, right? And there's a lot of people who really don't give a shit. And I think when a time like this hits, and although it's hard for everyone, I think a lot of people's true colors were revealed, just kind of calling it how it is, right?
I'm sitting around during COVID. I'm like, where the fuck is the 23-year-old online business coach that says you should make 7 figures a year? Where the fuck did that guy go?
Right.
Oh, he got kicked out of his mom's basement. He's out. Like, I'm just wondering where all of these frauds did go, because you nailed it, man. It is a smoke and mirror show in the fitness industry, honestly, in every industry today, due to polarized social media, due to people being a shiny object society and gravitating towards stupid shit, and really just becoming soft and becoming superficial as a culture. That sounds harsh, but it's the reality of things. We are fucking soft here in America. We're physically soft. We are mentally soft. And we have a hard time dealing with challenges. That's why COVID's been so brutal across the board here in America. I mean, I'm not discounting it anywhere else. I know that Europe's still dealing with some shit. They're dealing with shit down in South America, in Asia as well. You know, a lot of our courses and our partners have been shut down there. But it seems like we just fucking bitch and moan and complain and make excuses unlike any other culture on earth. And I hate to say it, but like, fuck, man, as an American, like, wouldn't we want to be known for more than bitching and moaning, especially on the national stage where every single news outlet is showing how poorly we're doing physically and also financially and fiscally during this corona epidemic? It's almost embarrassing, to be totally honest.
Yeah. And speaking of being physically soft, I think that one of the big things here that nobody is talking about really is the value of keeping your immune system strong, of getting healthy, right? Like, nobody's talking about this shit. Nobody's talking about fitness. Nobody's talking about nutrition or sleep or managing stress. Nobody's saying a word about it aside from the people that are in the fitness industry. It's like, man, we got to spread that word. People need to hear this, because it's not just about masks and social distancing and locking yourself in a basement. It's about keeping your fucking immune system strong and staying healthy.
It's one of these things that I think we dropped the ball almost instantaneously, while a lot of other countries actually did make some polarizing moves in terms of controlling some factors that are within your own reach, like exercise, like nutrition, like stress management, and like sleep. I think we had the opportunity to actually address some of these key issues that were killing us before COVID and will kill us for decades after COVID. Obesity is going to be one of the number one predetermining factors of success as a healthy individual across the board. And nobody wants to talk about that. But I think that it's time to start talking about some of these things, because things like obesity are disease multipliers, meaning that if you come in, 42.4% of the American population is overweight, obese, or we can't call this anymore, but morbidly obese. That's like almost 1 in every 2 people that are literally struggling to live their best life because of excess baggage, that they're fucking up their hormonal systems, fucking up their relationships, their sleep, their joint stress. It is unbelievable the amount of really disuse that we have in this country right now. But, you know, we're looking at simple things that just got neglected. things as simple as getting outside, getting some sunlight. I'm sitting here in Madison, Wisconsin in December. So I'm like, man, trying to get this bald head some sun because I know there's some benefits to it, but exercise, sleep, stress management, and don't go eat shit. But that seems easy for fitness professionals, you and I, to talk about. It's like, this is common sense. It's the way that we live our life. But I think the big disadvantage that the fitness industry was at in terms of getting out our message is we don't have a unified lobbying front. And we don't have a unified approach to actually get everyone from all the different sects of our industry on the same page to make systemic change in society. When this all first happened, I remember, fuck the big box gym. They're the reason that we can't open. Then the big box gym was like, fuck the small guys because they don't have enough money to get the HVAC systems that are safe. And everyone's fighting each other. Meanwhile, people are still arguing on Instagram, what's better for speed work 5 reps? Is it 40 or 45%? Like, we're fighting each other on these issues when in all actuality, it's like people from strength training, people from sports performance, people from physical therapy, Pilates, fucking runners, yogis, everyone should be getting together, unified by movement as our medium to make health change. And I think that's going to be the thing that in our careers, if we can do the right things and get everybody on board, that is our only shot at actually changing the health of society. It's the only shot, because how much reach do I have? How much reach do you have? Even some of the big polarizing people in our industry, we're minor influencers in the grand scheme of things. You know, right. America, we have 332 million people here. You know, if you have 1 million on Instagram, you're fucking famous. You're not even tapping into a vast majority of the people that need your help. And that is the mission. That is the challenge. And it's going to be there before, during, and after COVID. This has just exposed those issues and made a chronic health condition an acute threat.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I agree with you 100%. And I guess the whole thing here is, and what can we do? You know, we have to try to join forces, and we have to try to get our voice out there and spread the message as much as we possibly can. And to shift gears from COVID for a sec. So, you know, I do want to talk to you about, you know, warming up properly. And I want to talk to you about getting out of pain and all that stuff, because obviously I have you on the show. I don't want you to run away without chatting about that first. So basically, let's rewind. Let's go before COVID started. The industry was kind of headed down a path where people were doing 60 minutes of corrective exercise 5 days a week. And you kind of stepped in and said, well, as this stuff is important, but we have to get back to training, right? So what drove you to step in there and kind of try to shed the light on proper training and actually getting stronger?
So I spent almost 10 years in the university just wasting away my days doing research and looking at journals and articles and studies. And after all that shit, I realized like nothing I'm learning here other than how to research is actually applicable in the gym for my athletes, because I spent almost a decade in sports performance after that. And I'm looking around and I'm sifting through the metas, I'm sifting through the data. I came from a more eclectic sports performance background where people tried to train more intelligently back in the day, whatever that means to you. But in all actuality, what is the one thing that keeps people healthy? When you break down all the data available to us today, every single thing. Is it the foam roller? Nah. Is it stretching? Is it getting super fucking jacked? You have data there. The one thing that was a commonality between healthy, resilient motherfuckers was how strong you are. And when you look at relative strength, that is the number one predictor of your health and wellness overall. I'm not just talking about, hey, your knees don't hurt and your shoulders don't hurt and your back doesn't blow out when you deadlift. I'm talking about your overall wellness as a human being. Strength is the number one predicting factor to longevity, health, and wellness. So I knew that, but how hard is that to message? Because you did mention we lived the last decade or so in this fitness industry that wanted to do anything other than get strong and lift heavy. We are balancing on BOSU balls. We have 4 different unconventional tools on our body at the same time. We're doing fucking 30 minutes of breathing and forgetting to actually train before we go in and end that session. We were doing anything other than the biggest predicting factor for health, wellness, and longevity, which is getting fucking strong. So I'm a meathead. I'm a self-proclaimed meathead. I've always been a meathead. I started off at University of Buffalo. I ended up playing sports there, got my first job there, came through the ranks there, and then moved on into the private sector. But one thing that I always loved to do was to clang and bang, to fucking lift heavy, to go hard, to do it smart, and to do it so it wasn't ripping my body apart. But I thought, my personality type, I love to do it. So I can understand where people may not love it like I do, but I think I love it because I've seen almost 2 decades of the benefits of what this can do for you across the board. And when it came to about 2013, 2014, I continued to coach full time, but I moved more into like content development. So for the first time, I was like writing articles and shit. Honestly, because I was sitting over there in China, coaching at the Chinese Olympic Committee, and I was on reverse time. So 16 hours different between where everyone I knew lived and me. So I'm sitting there during the day, nothing to fucking do because I only coach like 3 or 4 hours a day. I'm sitting there writing articles and I started sending them out to people. And it was a different take at that time than things that people have heard before. Because they look at, a byline that says Dr. John Rusin. Oh, he has degrees in physical therapy and exercise science and kinesiology. They're expecting me to be like, blow into this balloon for 30 minutes and your back won't hurt. In all actuality, I was like, no, here's what we need to go hard and heavy on. Here's a couple little tweaks that will make this feel better for you. But here's how you bulletproof your body for life. And it didn't have anything to do with some fluffy bullshit. And I think that was it was a paradigm shift for a lot of people looking at, hey, you have 2 sects of the industry. Kill yourself or be a fluffy, soft individual and self-justify training by walking your ass into the gym and foam rolling. Why don't we blend these 2 things together? It's not one or the other. It's a pendulum swinging and trying to land right in the middle where we go minimal effective dose on the things that we know we should probably be doing more, which is our preparation work, is our ancillary work, and things that keep us healthy on a daily basis. But a vast majority of your focus, if you plan on actually training to see results for life, should be predicated on getting strong through base foundational movement patterns over time, having fun, training hard, and getting the most out of it. So I think that idea had evolved starting in 2013 publicly all the way to what it is today. And that idea caught on, and we've proven the model with PPSC. We have 4,700 certified coaches over a 23-month period to date. That's a lot of coaches that bought into this system, but you can't hide with that. Results speak. And I think that the simplicity of the delivery of our system makes it extraordinarily effective because, again, it blends these 2 things that you never thought could go together to actually create results for people.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, man. And so then for people who train, we have 2 sides of the spectrum, right? We have the meathead that walks into the gym, they do a couple of Hulk Hogan arm swings, and then they get to the bench press, right? And then on the other side, we have the corrective exercise people that spend hours just doing corrective exercise and breathing drills, right? So what I loved about your stuff and about your certification is, the stuff that you talk about in your warm-up, right? So one of the goals of the warm-up is to take people from that parasympathetic state and into the sympathetic state, right? And so you have 6 phases here, right? In order to do that. So you have the SMR phase, the stretching phase, correctives, activation, foundational movement patterns, and then CNS activation, right? So what I want to do is I just have a couple questions for you on each area here to see if we could help a couple people out so they know kind of what they can incorporate to make their warm-up better, because now they know you don't want to spend hours warming up, but you don't want to just swing your arms and jump on a bench press either, right? So exactly. As far as SMR, so one of the keys that you have for quality SMR is rolling those neurologically dense areas. So what are some of those areas, and how can people incorporate them into their training to really optimize SMR? Because I think another thing that people do is they really waste time on the foam roller. They're texting, they're just kind of mindlessly rolling around. So how can they optimize that?
Well, give yourself 1 to 2 minutes. What we do with a lot of our clients and coaches is literally set the timer. You got 2 minutes and you're going to get 2 minutes of quality work in, because that's how important I think soft tissue work is. That's the question I get all the time. John, do you believe in foam rolling and soft tissue work? Yeah, I believe that it should be 2 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, oh, it doesn't make any sense. But what we're trying to do is minimal effective dose, because you only have so much time in a session. I'd rather get 2 more minutes in on the Airdyne and get close to puking than spend too many minutes foam rolling, because that doesn't elicit a training effect. But when we're talking about these high yield areas, you essentially have 5 big ones that comprise the shoulder, the hip, and then some on the core combo. So you're thinking about things that if you like poked yourself, you'd be like, damn, is that sensitive? Oh, it's tight. It's not fucking tight. There's a nerve there and it's very close to the skin. And we need to just break the misconception down that you're breaking up scar tissue. You're not mechanically changing any of these tissues. Basically, you're doing any soft tissue work, whether it be on a foam roller, a lacrosse ball, somebody working on you. And it's basically just a trigger back into your brain to manage tonicity. Tonicity is the relative tightness in a region. And by hitting these areas, one is like right on the pec, another one's right on the upper back. You think about down by your hips and your hip flexors, your glutes, and then right on the inside of your knees, kind of like near that teardrop VMO muscle. These are like light switch moments where if you can get on there, if you can keep the pain level low, because we don't want too much pain because your muscles will guard, you get in there and you hit these things. And in a matter of literally 10 to 20 seconds, many times, you can almost open up the potential to possibly move a little bit better, to feel a little bit better, and to climb the staircase, which is the 6-phase dynamic warm-up. So in all actuality, we're getting in and just hitting a couple hot spots and then getting on to more active things, because there's nothing less active in the gym except for breathing than being on a foam roller. It really takes no tactile feedback. You have no acuity of your body moving through space. It's literally a means to an end to continue to move up that chain, climb that staircase, and get to something more active.
Got it. Now, let's just say somebody has a problematic area in the lower body, but it's an upper body day. Will you spend any time on that problematic area on an upper body day, or will you just strictly hit the upper body stuff on an upper body day and lower body on lower days?
So it's interesting. When you first came to the course, I think it was in 2018 at Solace in New York City, we were teaching where we were going in and going at the linchpin, your AKA weakest link, no matter what. So if your weak link was left hip internal rotation and you just hammered that left hip all the time, no matter if it was a bench press day or you're planning on deadlifting, you go after that left hip. In the last 2 years or so, we've transitioned to make it a little bit more simple and applicable for our coaches that are utilizing the PPSC system now. Now we actually go and we try to split the body in half, because many of our trainees, they either train lower upper splits or they train total body. And really, we try to go after a linchpin in the upper body, like your weakest link, or a linchpin in the lower body. But it got to the point where we got that question so many times where we're like, you know what? This is how I train my clients now. This is how I evolve this PPSC system. We're going to start teaching it like that. And that was actually right post-COVID when we did a lot of updates on this curriculum for the course. But if you're doing bench press, you would have to have some really fucked up hips in order for that to be your linchpin for the day. So upper lower split, trying to figure out what it is that you need to prepare for that KPI or that key performance indicator movement of the day, the thing that you're training hardest and the heaviest.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And now the second phase, biphasic stretching. I guess for people listening, explain what biphasic stretching is. Why is that superior to just, regularly just doing some static stretching? And what are some problematic areas that are the common problematic areas that people could address?
Basically, like phase 2 is this mobility block. So there's a lot of different modalities and stretching techniques that you could use here. But the one that we found to be the most effective is literally combining some static elements of stretching to some dynamic movements, elements of stretching as well. And when you think about what's the goal of doing mobility, it's like, if you already have the range of motion, you can stabilize that range of motion. Do you really need to work there very much? No. Mobility is gained and maintained at terminal authentic end ranges of motion. So if you're thinking about doing something like touching your toes, like you're not going to work the range that's halfway down. You're going to work when you're actually down with your hands towards the ground, because that's the range that you want to open up. You get into something called a motor control gap. That is literally the thing that you want to close down and extend as much as possible. So with biphasic stretching, we get into really good positions where we manage our shoulders, our hips, and our core. Everything's neutral-ish. And at that point in time, we try to bias a muscle, like the hip flexors in a half kneeling position, like the adductors in a frog position on your forearms. And whatever that muscle is, we try to sit back on the end range of there, keeping everything with some tension throughout the chain. And we just rock in and out about an inch or two of oscillating moments. And that oscillation is where the biphasic stretching comes in. We maybe oscillate for about 30 seconds, and then we hold a stretch, which has a static component, for about 15 or 20 seconds on top of that. So it's dynamic plus static equals biphasic, 2 phases for the stretch. But again, the misconception is that if you're going to stretch, you got to hold these things for 5 or 10 minutes. You got to be in excruciating pain. You got to have your strength coach like ripping your hamstrings off the ischial tuberosity to get benefit from it. You don't, because again, the goal of mobility work is to use the muscles in order to target the brain to open up its neuroplasticity, to learn a thing or two, and to kind of let off that parking brake that's on a lot of our regions in terms of the human movement system. So being able to just get in and get a stimuli that allows you to extend out and feel your best and move your best, that's the goal of foam rolling or any type of mobility work.
Got it. Okay. So we start off with the SMR, then we move on to the biphasic stretching, right? So now it's time to incorporate the corrective exercise. So first off, I guess for people listening, could you just give us an explanation of what corrective exercises are, and then how could we use them properly in a warm-up?
So corrective exercise is a very polarizing term. It gets a lot of attention. There's whole certifications on corrective exercise. But what we're actually talking about is just relearning or ingraining a new movement skill, trying to extend things like symmetry, like smoothness, and stability while you're creating new movements. So something like a T-spine rotation, being able to rotate, but also being able to coordinate your shoulder blades, your thoracic spine, your cervical spine, your head and your neck and your hips, and everything to be able to articulate together. I think about it as just practicing a skill. It's practicing a skill, and that's the way that you should be programming it as well. It doesn't really matter what type of exercise you put in there, as long as you can open your brain to learning something new. That is the goal of corrective exercise in the way that we teach it, is you have a couple minutes, and this is your time to just play. I like experiential tactile learning here. You're not going to be counting sets. You're not going to be counting reps. What you're going to be doing is going in and trying to learn a thing or two about your body, because no matter how good your coach is, your coach cannot feel what you can internally within your body. So this is a time to actually hone into the quality of the movement. So very simply put, try to extend some ranges of motion, move smooth, move authentically, and try to learn something.
And how long will you typically spend on that phase?
About 2 to 3 minutes. And again, like, I don't care if you do 15 reps on one side and 9 on the other side. It doesn't matter, because all we're trying to do is learn a thing or two.
Got it. Got it. I love that. It's such a simplistic way to incorporate that stuff, right? And not spend your entire training session in that area, right? So
it's also like, we don't want to throw shackles on our coaches either. You know, we have some talented people within the PPSC coaching pool, people with advanced certifications in corrective exercise or mobility. We want to give them a roadmap. We want to give them the blueprint so they can plug and play whatever their specific skill set is within our system. That is the definition of a system. All the components added together summate to greater than its whole. And that is something that you need to think about. Like, a lot of our coaches come through and they'll be like, yeah, I've seen this before, but I've never seen it used like that. That's the power of the system, because one exercise or one method or one technique is only as powerful as the way that it integrates with the rest of a session or a program. It's just one tiny component, but it's the way that it creates synergy together is the actual usability of what you're doing. And if you don't know why you're doing something, then you probably shouldn't do it, because it's not creating synergy. It's actually taking away from either time, energy, or emphasis.
Right. Right. Yeah. I love that, man. I think that, and also it allows coaches to be creative. So for instance, like for us in a group setting, so we train people in a group environment, and we have people from all different walks of life and training ages and just everything, completely different people. And so it's always like, hey, how could we take a system like this and apply it to our warm up, to try to be creative and, make it beneficial for everyone, and try to make it as optimal as we can for everyone, because it's difficult, as if you have a room full of 10, 15 people, trying to make everything individualized and specific. So it gives myself and my coaches, at least, the ability to have some flexibility and to try to work this stuff in appropriately.
Yeah, you said two words. It's like individualized and custom programming.
Right.
Those are marketing words, and it took me a long time to figure that out. I used to be the coach that was like, every single component of a warm up, of a cool down, and the core training program needs to be 100% custom to this client. Then after a while, I was like, man, like I was writing custom programs, pure custom programs, and like 70 to 80% of the shit was all the same, even though I actually sat down to write custom programs. And that was like an aha moment for me. I was like, oh, people all, due to our sedentary society, due to handheld technologies, due to our daily postural positioning, and really our influence from old school training methods, we kind of 80% of us deal with the same chronic weak links and linchpins. So that's how we started programming forward too. And it scales a lot better when you get into semi-private and group training as well. It's like the idea of setting a blueprint for your avatar and then customizing 10 to 20% on top of that avatar is actually more effective than trying to go in and rewrite the book every single time you get a new training block for a client. Because if you're in the same age group, gender demographics, if you're in the same chronic stress situations, a lot of our clients, they come from the same types of backgrounds and jobs and professions. You're probably going to be working on the same things. That's going to be getting you up into an extended position. It's going to be mobilizing your hips. It's going to be keeping your shoulders healthy and building a strong posterior chain. And it's going to be actually learning how to create core tension, stability, and bracing. That could help everyone, whether you squat 900 or whether you're trying to squat 90 for the first time with a goblet squat. There's certain key principles that actually are more important than a quote unquote customized online bullshit program that is all actuality something that's just made up.
Yeah, I love that. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's key principles within your warm up. There's going to be principles within your training program, within your nutrition. And that's, a message that I'd like to put out there is, hey, listen, you don't need listen, your training needs to be well designed, right? You still need to have a progressive, intelligent training program. But as long as you are sticking to key principles, right, then you're going to make progress. You're going to get out of pain. You're going to put on more muscle. You're going to lose fat, right? So just stick to the principles. And when we're talking about the general population, it's really, those are the principles are the driving force, right? I mean, it's those things that need to be adopted on in those different areas. So, okay. So back to this warm up here. So we said corrective exercise. Now we move to the activation phase. So what does that look like? What's the intention here? What are some examples of exercises you like to use in this phase?
Yeah, I like the activation phase, and it's actually my favorite phase because you can feel it like a training scenario. You can feel the stimulus. And what we're trying to do is create a shit ton of tension. We're trying to actually activate the muscles. What we're trying to essentially do is create blood flow, but also neural drive into key stabilizing areas. The upper back's one, the lower back's another, the glutes and the entire posterior chain, the things that will stabilize the front side of the body dynamic actions. So we do a shit ton of upper back work with the bands, thinking about face pulls and pull aparts. We do a lot of hip thrusts and glute bridging, plank variations to try to activate the core. Anything that can allow us to really drive blood flow and neural drive into that area, AKA you feel the muscles contracting and you can feel blood pooling. In a matter of 2 to 3 minutes, we try to get in 20, 30, 40 reps of a certain joint friendly exercise. It's usually not external load. We use a lot of banded accommodating resistances because it is joint friendly and it is only the warm up. And it's not like you're going ham on 1RMs on activation drills. But these are the things that essentially have the ability to restabilize that newfound range of motion in phase 3, which was corrective exercise. So phase 3 is to open up that range of motion. Phase 4 is to go into that range of motion and stabilize it with a lot of irradiation, which is tension traveling through the chain on the body, in order to actually put ourselves in a great position to be healthy once the load does go fast or does get heavy.
Got it. And then moving on to the next phase, which is grooving the movement pattern, right? So I mean, it's a pretty simple concept there, right? But just for people listening, like if you're going to squat that day, we have to groove that pattern and squat, right? So what else could we talk about as far as grooving that pattern? Is there any important principles that could be added to that?
Well, yeah, the patterns that you choose are extraordinarily important. We think about the 6 foundational movement patterns: squat, hinge, lunge, push, pull, carry. Those are the ones that you should really be working on. And this is the time to really create tension, practice your movement. Quality matters, because in all actuality, you're not going to have an SS yoke bar on your back with 405. What we're going to have is a 25-pound dumbbell doing goblet squats to try to grease the groove of the squat pattern before we train a squat variant or exercise. So this is the time to try to open up your range, to try to restabilize, to use the cues that you need that day, or have the coach actually coach up that. There's certain things in a squat that no matter what, no matter how long you've been training, you're going to have to key in on something, because when you get close to that 1 RM for the day, you're going to need it ingrained in your mind, because the last thing you're going to be thinking about under the bar is, externally rotate the hip. Like, you're not going to do that. It's just survival mode. So you're trying to practice good movement there.
Right. And just ingraining that pattern in your head, right? And I think that's so
practice again. Yes.
Yeah. Because if you're advanced or if you're a raw beginner, just grooving that pattern and just getting that in your mind and learning, just reinforcing bracing and tension and all those things before you get to your big lift of the day. I mean, I think that's so important. It's such a simplistic thing that a lot of people don't even consider.
Yeah, we ran into problems the last probably 2 or 3 decades where it was like, hey, my warm-up is taking an empty bar in the rack and doing it for 25 reps like shit, and then throwing on 2 wagon wheels and going in for the real stuff. It's right. Like we disrespect the warm-up. So instead of bullshitting that, what we do is we try to put loads in positions that actually create good movement, allow us to actually grease the groove of these patterns and practice a thing or two. But also, this should get your heart rate up. By this time in the warm-up, you're about 6 or 7 minutes in. By the time you get to phase 5, you should be feeling a little bit sweaty. You should have your heart rate up a little bit. We're climbing that staircase, and at the top of that staircase is your big lift of the day. So you should be feeling like you're almost getting a training effect by the time you get into this foundational movement pattern prep.
And just to bring up something you said there, 6 to 7 minutes in. We're not 20 minutes in here. We're not 40 minutes. It's 6 to 7 minutes. Quick, short, sweet. Get in, get out, get to training, right?
The famous quote from a seminar a number of years ago was, I don't care if you have a fucking gunshot wound in your goddamn leg and it's squat day. No more than 12 minutes. And everyone was like, damn, like gunshot wound, like, oh shit, this must be in America.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of things. We can get in 10 minutes. If you're working group, it's probably going to be about 12 minutes, but you need to keep on moving. You got to keep people on point, and we can't waste time, because time wasted with an extended warm-up is time that we cannot elicit a training effect. We can't get bigger. We can't get faster. We can't get stronger. We can't build our energy systems. We're just wasting time away. And as every coach out there knows, we only have a finite amount of time during that week to get results. Let's maximize it.
Hell yeah. And then finally, the last phase here is digging yourself out of that parasympathetic hole, right? And getting some CNS activation. So why is that important for those who don't know? And what are some of your go-to exercises people could use?
Well, essentially what we're doing in phase 6 with central nervous system stimulation is trying to train power. Power is the number one physical characteristic that is lost due to aging. And people don't necessarily realize it until it's too late. So what I mean by power is using explosive-based movements, whether that be plyometrics for the right person on a lower body day, whether that be ballistic medicine ball work, whether you're just doing body weight work and doing things like seal jacks or jumping jacks or skips or throws or jumps. All of that stuff is in that same bucket, which is power performance development. But essentially, the goal here is to try to stimulate the central nervous system to outperform what it would do without these techniques. So almost like being the best version of yourself right before it's time to do the most important thing of the day, which is usually the first or second exercise that people have in programming.
And I think an important thing here too is a lot of times people see an exercise and they see a certain, set prescription, rep prescription, right? And they'll, so I was having this conversation with one of my young interns the other day, and he was doing med ball chest passes, right? For this exact purpose. But he was throwing with probably 60%. I mean, it was like this, like my grandmother could have caught it and threw it back at him, right? And what I was telling him was like, look, it's not about the exercise, not just about the exercise, not just about the sets or reps, it's how it's performed. So when you're executing this, it has to be done with max effort, right? You have to, if you're going to train for power, you have to train powerfully, explosively, right? You have to put that, you have to take that into consideration. And I think not a lot of people, and this was surprising for me over the years because I've had a lot of young interns that are still in college that have come to me, and I find myself having this conversation over and over again. But I think it's really important to address. You have to be explosive. If you're going to train to become explosive, then you need to put some power into that, to that throw, to that jump, right?
It's one of the most misunderstood things, which is the intent of an exercise. Fucking people on Instagram, every single time I do a neural primer. So we do some like cool rotation neural primers. We'll have the landmine out and the fucking jammer arms and all this shit. And they like just don't fucking get it. We'll do like 3 or 4 reps and they'll be like lightning fast against accommodating resistances. And they'll be like, why do you train so fast with no eccentric? This doesn't build muscle. It's like, motherfucker, it doesn't build muscle. It gets me ready for the next exercise that's going to get me jacked. And
Right.
Not everything needs to be super heavy. When you're talking about power, power is best displayed at about 10 to 20% of a 1RM. You're thinking about something extraordinarily light, like the lightest thing that you can think about, and then trying to extend ranges of motion where you can actually accelerate through a concentric moment. Things like bands and chains become very advantageous there, or doing things like the landmine or doing things like jammer arms. Those are really good because it plays with the strength curve just enough so you can, again, tap into this. So not every single thing needs to be fatiguing. Not every single exercise needs to get your heart rate to 200. Not every single movement needs to blow you up to the point where you think your legs are going to explode. There are times and places to train power. There are times and places to train pure power and strength and load. And then there are times to build muscle and build energy systems capacity. All of these things should create a well-rounded program that, I don't care if you're a power lifter, I don't care if you're a sport performance athlete, or you're a general fitness population consumer. These are components of a well-rounded program that you simply need. This is non-negotiable for our style of training.
Love it, man. And now, so we went through the 6-phase warm-up, right? And now it's time to get to the most important thing, training, right? So once we actually get into training here, you said the 6 foundational human movement patterns, right? So you got the squat, the hinge, the lunge, the push, the pull, the carry. I think that a lot of people, a lot of meatheads especially, are married to specific exercises, right? Regardless of how dysfunctional those exercises are and how much pain they're in, they're just going to work through it, right? So what are some things that people could do to earn the right to utilize those big lifts? How could they progress? How could they assess and then know how to progress again?
Well, there's nothing wrong with a barbell deadlift, a barbell squat, a barbell bench press, but it doesn't make you a bad person to like cycle those out of your training for 4 to 6 weeks to feel a little bit better and work on some weak links. Essentially, what we try to do with each and every one of those foundational movement patterns is to develop it from the ground up, especially with people that are battling their own bodies on a daily basis. So what we mean by that is trying to take the simplest approach to these movements and building them up in terms of complexity and in terms of load capacity over time. I got known as being the guy that would tell a close to 1,000-pound squatter that he's goblet squatting for the next 4 to 6 weeks because we're going to reestablish a pain-free squat pattern. The kind of guys that would like eat you for lunch would be like, what the fuck are you doing to me, John? And this is the kind of stuff that is so against the old dogmatic approach. One of my biggest beliefs in the fitness industry is a non-dogmatic approach to health, fitness, and wellness, meaning that I am not afraid to use anything or everything in order to get somebody to where they want to be so they can sustain that level of performance or lifestyle forever. But trying to re-ingrain some of these foundational movement patterns or reestablish them if they have fallen to learned disuse, it's one of the easiest things that we can possibly do. Squat, bench, and dead, it's as old as training itself. We've been doing that for 60 or 70 years. And even before the fitness industry was a thing, people were working with the barbell. But we're missing out on a couple key components. We're missing out on a lot of pull positions at the shoulders. We're thinking about row variations. We're thinking about slight angle variations and overhead pulling variations. The other thing for the lower body, a lot of people are hinging, but we're doing predominant deadlifts instead of hinging from the top down, which is more of a Romanian deadlift variation that goes through an eccentric, change of direction phase, and a concentric. And the last one that nobody wants to hear is single leg asymmetrical lower body work. Lunges, split squats, things like that, single leg RDLs. The reason that they are such high yield is because your body learns to restabilize on a single leg stance or an asymmetrical stance. And that does a world of good for trying to work on symmetry, but also to work on bracing between the shoulders and the hips and the core in brand new novel positions. And to be totally honest, getting rows in, getting single leg work in, and getting more RDLs in than your deadlifts, that shit is gonna make you jacked as well. Those are the things that actually build a big, strong posterior chain better than some of the more traditional lifts. And when you actually bring it all together, what's the goal of training? If your goal of training is to go and compete in powerlifting, good, awesome for you. But you're 0.01% of the population that actually needs to be active out there in the world. Many of our clients, myself included, my goal is to be bigger, is to be leaner, is to be stronger, and all on top of everything, 100% pain-free every fucking decade here on out. I want to be better at 50 than I am at 40. I want to be that jack 75-year-old fucking guy in the gym that people go, hey, what have you been doing lately? Nothing, man. I've been lifting for 55 years. That's how I got to this point. I want to be able to extend out a quality of life that makes me feel mentally acute. I want to be emotionally stable, and I want to be a physical badass that doesn't have to deal with repercussions of pain and injuries. And I think a lot of people need to get their mindset straight. Yes, you should have fun. You should do what you love to do in the gym. If you fucking love to barbell bench press, I'm not going to take that away from you forever. But there are ways to reestablish some of these patterns, do things a little bit smarter, and again, just have a well-rounded approach to the way that you physically perform. Because this is the worst case scenario. For guys like you and I and many of the people listening to this podcast, being able to train is everything. And having training taken away from you is the worst scenario that I can imagine. Because I depend on training to be the best father I can, to be the best family man I can, to be a business owner, to be a coach, to be a mentor, to be a community member. Training makes me a better human. That's why I want to share it with everybody. But I can't imagine what my life would be like if I had training taken away because I did some fucking stupid in the gym. It's just a non-negotiable.
Dude, what better way to end this podcast than that right there, man? That's amazing. That's amazing. And I'm getting fired up over here. And I know that everybody listening is going to be pretty fired up as well. So I know you have a hard out that you have to do here now. But dude, I just want to first say thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on the show. And I want to thank you for all of the information, all the content that you've been putting out over the years. Really helps guys like myself really just grow in this industry and really helps us help more people. So I just want to thank you for all of that information, man, and just keep doing what you're doing because you're really making an impact over here, man.
No, man, it's a pleasure because even before you came into the course, I was a fan of yours. And if anyone looks on my Instagram, I follow like nobody. I follow Chris because he puts out some good shit and actually real talk and talks about the things that others are afraid to talk about. But I've been a fan of yours for many, many years, man. And I love to see that you're doing good with this podcast, getting the gym rolling. I know it's hard times over there in Jersey, but it's awesome to see, brother. And being able to connect on this podcast has been awesome. I look forward to doing it again, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. And before you go, where could everyone find you? Where could they get a hold of you?
drjohnrusin.com is the main hub. Dr. John Rusin on Instagram, Dr. John Rusin on Facebook. And then the pain-free performance specialist certification is at getppsc.com, and it's getppsc on Instagram. Like Chris mentioned in the beginning of the episode, we do have the online PPSC running for the first and only time here, happening in a couple weeks. It'll be live December 18th through the 20th. It will be on demand all Christmas week because Lord knows you don't want to spend a week with your family inside of quarantine, and you're going to be able to get certified and come to a course next year on the PPSC. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to have you.
And I am not just saying this, the course is amazing. I did it back in 2018, and I'm going to definitely do it again. Like I told you, I think we chatted through Instagram a while back. I want to get my team on board as well. It's just been a crazy couple weeks, crazy couple months, but we definitely will be at one of the newer certifications. So I'm looking forward to that.
Love it, brother. Thanks again, man.